Strange hauntings on this edition of Jim Harold's Campfire.
Sit back, relax, and warm yourself by Jim Harold's Campfire.
You know, we have storytellers, callers who call in, and they really make an impression on people, and they say, I want to hear more stories from this person. And we have such a person on the line. Clover is with us. Clover, hello. Thanks for joining us. I appreciate it very much. You have a story about your son. Could you please tell us this story about your son? And welcome back.
Yeah, it's a nice, quick, a true campfire story, at least for our family. So my son's a teenager now, but when he was little, he had a difficult time going to sleep, as most little kids do.
Sure.
And he's the baby of the family, so, you know, a little bit on the spoiled side, I guess. So anyway, for him, when he couldn't sleep, I was like, you know, I'll just lay down with you or read lots of stories. And then when he would start to drift off, I would like slowly creep out the room, which often backfired because he had like a internal sensor of when I would leave. He could be like dead asleep and then I'd be like creeping out, but he'd wake up. I was like, great. So there's a lot of times because of that, I would just give up and fall asleep in his bed and then wake up around, 2 a.m, like, where am I? And then like creep back to my room. So this was one of those times. And, gosh, this was like 13 years ago. So, cell phones weren't quite as advanced as they are now, but you could still take a lot of pictures, And one of his favorite things to amuse himself, he was like 2 or 3, was to like to take lots of pictures, but it would fill up the memory on the phone, on those old phones.
Yeah.
So I was like, man, so then there was a lot of times where I would just delete like 5 million pictures of a flower or a tree or something,
Aw.
So anyway, I left the phone sitting like on the dresser or something. And it was one of those nights where we both fell asleep together. And then it was about 2 a.m. and all of a sudden he's like jumping all over the bed. And mind you, it's like pitch black, right? But then I would just see these flashes of him taking pictures on the phone. And I'm just like trying to get my bearings. Like you wake up and you're not quite sure where you are because you're not in your bed and it's pitch black and like this flashes are going off everywhere and this kid's jumping all over the bed. I was like, what is going on? So I flip on the light and then he wasn't really upset. He was a little bit shook up, but more excited than anything. And he was like, there's a scary man, scary man. So he was trying to explain that there's a scary man chasing him around the room. And I'm like, trying to get him calmed down, not really thinking too much about it. I'm like, well, you had a bad dream or something, But it was weird enough where I was like, let's go sleep in my room. I don't like to.
Yeah.
My imagination at that point was like, the hair's like standing up a little bit. I'm like, let's just go sleep.
Sure.
So anyway, I forget about it. We go to sleep. And then I'm making him breakfast in the morning and he's eating his toast. And then I remember it. I'm like, oh man, here's the phone again. There's probably like 20 million pictures because he had been using the camera flash and taking like 1,000 pictures during whatever this incident was,
Right.
So he's eating his toast and I'm going through and deleting all these pictures one by one. And they're all black because, there wasn't any light and the room was black. And then I got almost to the last picture and I noticed it wasn't black and I looked at it and you could actually see like a ghost-like man's face looking back at you. And there's like these big black eyes and you can see his nose and then the starts of a huge ugly smile, like those creepy smiles.
Oh man, you just gave me chills.
Too big for the face. But I posted it on your the Jim Harold website that you have.
Yeah, the virtual campfire group. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
If anyone wants to see it, there's an actual ghost picture on there taken by a little boy.
Virtual campfire group, virtualcampfiregroup.com. That is so cool. The thing is that's what I love about this kind of community that we've built. It's one of those things where, we can go on and we can post our pictures and we can do these different things and talk about our stories. I mean, I think it is so awesome. And I thank you for, for doing that, for putting that on there so people can find it. So really appreciate it very, very much that you did that. And to all of our people over there. And folks, if you haven't gone over there, and I don't want to detract from Clover's story, virtualcampfiregroup.com, virtualcampfiregroup.com. That's a place where we can share our stories. I think Clover will agree. People are very welcoming. They're very accepting. There's not spammy ads. There's not just kind of crazy AI posts like you see on other social media sites. So we wanted to create this, and we have it's a few thousand, I think 3,000, 4,000 people, but it's not as big as the Facebook group, but I think it's way better because it's just our people and without all these intrusive ads and spying and stuff goes on with Facebook, unfortunately.
Right.
Unfortunately, that is so cool. Well, thank you for sharing that. I really appreciate it. Everybody, make sure to check that out, and we'll try to elevate that in the group when this episode comes out so you can see it. That is just awesome. That is just awesome.
It was funny because I showed him the picture too, and I was like, is this the man? And he's just like, yeah, scary man. And then he acted like it was nothing. He just kept eating his toast, like, of course it was.
That is so awesome. I love it. So you're going to have to go over to virtualcampfiregroup.com and see that picture, folks. I've been telling you, go over there. Now you've got a really good reason to do it. Do you have any theories on Clover on who it was or what it was?
I really don't. I'd like to say it was a ghost. But that's just a general term. There's so many different spirit and beings out there. But yeah, it's definitely, I think by the unusual smile and how he was kind of like a trickster kind of entity with my son, not meaning to like harm him, of course. So I don't know. That's a good question.
Yeah. And I thank you so much for sharing your story. It's just awesome. I appreciate it very much. Everybody go to virtualcampfiregroup.com and check out Clover's picture. And Clover, thank you, and stay spooky.
Yeah, you too, Jim. Stay spooky.
Welcome to the Campfire. I am Jim Harold, and so glad to be with you once again. And we just keep on keeping on. We have a lot of great storytellers today, and so glad you're here. And if you don't know what we do here is simply have real folks come on and share their real stories of the supernatural. Could be cryptid creatures, could be ghosts, could be UFOs, could be head scratchers, whatever they are amazing and they are real. And we're so glad to have you here with us. Now, if you've been listening for a while and you say, Jim, I want more. I heard somebody say they wish we could come out twice a week. I wish we could too, but believe me, the workload would make that impossible for us to do with our very small but mighty team. But what we can say is we have our Plus Club at jimharold.com/plus, where there are hundreds of episodes, thousands of stories just waiting for you. And that is at jimharold.com/plus, jimharold.com/plus. Recently, we were at the haunted garage sale, which was fantastic. Absolutely loved it. So thanks to Jeff and Luna from the Cleveland Haunt Club for putting that on. 15,000 people. It was amazing. But anyway, we had people come up and say, hey, I'm a Plus Club member. I love it. Didn't have one person come up and say I'm a Plus Club member and I hate it. Pretty much universally, people say that they enjoy the Plus Club. I think you will too. jimharold.com/plus, jimharold.com/plus. And I will say this. We count on our Plus Club members to support this show and make it possible. If our Plus Club went away, so would the Campfire. So if you want to keep the Campfire burning brightly, plus get access to all those shows. And by the way, new episodes, no ads and new episodes when you are a Plus member. So you know what to do, jimharold.com/plus, jimharold.com/plus. We would greatly appreciate it. We like having a job. We love doing this show. Please help us continue to make that possible. And now on to our second great Campfire story. Kelsey is from Tennessee. She joins us today, and actually she found the show before COVID times. We find so many people found us right at COVID or right after. But Kelsey is one of the long timers, and we're glad to have her on the show. And she said she's been meaning to call in for a long time about this story about her husband who lived in a haunted house in high school. And she's going to tell us all about it. Kelsey, welcome to the program. Tell us what happened.
Thanks, Jim. Yeah, so actually, I think last week's episode, someone told a story about a very spooky whistle that they heard in their house, and it kind of reminded me of one of the many things that happened in this house. But basically, my husband and I have been together since high school, so I met him when he was living in this house, and this took place in a house that was on the Ohio River. Like in the West Virginia, Ohio, Kentucky tri-state area to kind of give you an idea of place. And this house had a really traumatic past. So my husband's mother actually grew up in the house also. So his grandpa bought the house for very, very cheap because unfortunately the family that lived in it before them, there was a double murder suicide in this house. It was really awful. It was really traumatic. I'll spare the details of that happening. But when my husband's family moved into the house, they had to literally pack up all the belongings of this family that lived there and move it out of the house when they moved in.
Wow.
So it was very fresh. There were bullet holes in the doors. They had to replace the blood-soaked carpet. Like, it was really intense. But it was a really beautiful home. It sat on the Ohio River. It was a gorgeous space. But after that, the house was never the same. This house definitely made me believe in the stone tape theory. So I have 3 short stories of there were many that happened in this house. And so the first one, this happened to my sister-in-law, so my husband's little sister. The house had an incredible bathroom. It had like a jacuzzi tub, stairs leading up to it, mirrors everywhere. It was beautiful. And so she was taking a bath one day. It was daylight out. It was a weekday. Everyone was gone. It was just her in the house. And they always had a ton of animals running in and out of this house. So she was in the tub and the dogs were kind of outside whining at the door because, she was home alone and they couldn't see her. And so she kind of whistled at them to get them to calm down. And she said, so she whistled at them and not 3 seconds later, something whistled back to her.
Oh boy.
In almost the same tone that she whistled out in.
Oh boy. Wow.
And it obviously freaked her out. She was maybe 16 at the time. Again, the only one in the house. I don't think dogs know how to whistle.
No.
So she said she got right up out of that tub, got dressed, and sat on the porch until her mom came home.
I can't say I blame her. Wow, that's scary.
Either.
And part of you might think, oh, there's not a ghost, but a human person in there, but there wasn't. So
no, no, because they had a lot of big dogs. No one's getting past their big dogs. And yeah, her and all the dogs went and sat outside after that. But yeah, and then so another story from this house was one that I was there for and experienced also. So my husband's whole family bowled in a bowling league. And so every Saturday night we were at the bowling league late. But my husband and I were usually the first ones back at the house because his parents and him bowled on separate teams and his parents took way longer to bowl. So we had gotten back to the house. It was me, my husband, and his little sister, and all the lights were off in the house. We turned the lights on, and not a full minute before we stepped foot into that house, we heard this really loud crash and scrape, and then something hit the wall upstairs. And they had this ceiling fan in the living room that no one, and again, his mom grew up in that house, and then he also grew up in that house. So they had been in this house for 20 plus years.
Right.
And there was a ceiling fan in the living room that no one could ever find the switch for. And so it had been running for 20 years. And so it was very strange. And so we walked up into the living room, we look up and we see that fan is coming to a slow stop. And, fan blades, the way that they connect to the fan itself is through that metal hardware, right?
Yeah.
This fan blade, it was a wooden fan blade. it looked like someone grabbed a hold of it and broke it in half and splintered it from the base and then threw it across the room.
Huh.
It was bizarre. We could not explain how it happened, and then the fan stopped running after that. It was really spooky. That happened in a time where a lot of strange things were happening. This was the type of home where, like, every time they talked about selling it and moving on, bad things would happen. That would like affect the sale of a home. That being just like a small thing that happened, but it was very strange. And then, so another story that I think is really like the epitome of the stone tape theory for me is that, again, this house was on the riverbank of the Ohio River. So sometimes we would just camp on the riverbank for fun.
Right.
And so one night we were camping on the riverbank for fun, and like my husband's parents were also camping in their own tent down there. And my mother-in-law got up really early in the morning and went up to the house to use the bathroom.
Mm-hmm.
And so she was in the bathroom, and she said that while she was in there, she heard out of nowhere, and this had to have been like 6 or 7 in the morning, the most blood-curdling scream, like the most blood-curdling female scream she had ever heard in her life, coming from the kitchen. And so she bursts out of the bathroom, goes downstairs to the kitchen, and there's nobody there.
Oh, man.
And it freaked her out all day long. And then she realized later that day that that was the anniversary of the double murder suicide that happened in that house. And as just like a brief synopsis of that occurrence, the husband of that house came home and killed his wife in the kitchen. So that's where she would that's where that would have happened. And so my mother-in-law really believes that she heard that replay that day. And she talks about it to this day as like one of the scariest things that's ever happened to her. And she has experienced a lot of strange things in that home as a kid and as an adult. But yeah, lots of strangeness.
It's interesting to me, and different people will have different answers for this. But would most people, if they were presented with an opportunity to buy a beautiful house, but knowing there had been some kind of great tragedy, maybe a violent situation like you're talking about, I'd be curious what percentage of people would take it and what percentage would not take it. And I'm not saying either answer is wrong or right. And it might be one of those things too good to pass up, if it's just a tremendous, tremendous deal. And then people could probably live in it decades, nothing would happen. But then again, something like this. So you mentioned early on in the call that it really makes you believe in the stone tape theory, this idea that like spirits and so forth can kind of saturate spaces. So do you believe this was mainly a replay situation? Do you think these were sentient ghosts? What do you think?
It's really hard to say because there were things that happened in that house that felt like replays. But then there were things in that house that felt intentional and sentient also. Um, you know, I I know from experience that a lot of people actually did not want the house because I was there when they finally and also every couple that ever lived in that house historically ended in either murder or divorce.
Oh,
And
wow.
my husband's parents ended up in divorce. And so when they were trying to sell that house, um, I was there when they would show it to people, right? And so because we would have to take all the pets out of the house so people
Right.
could, see it in peace. And people loved the house. It was beautiful. It was gorgeous. But every time a realtor would show the house and we would ask, like, what did they think? Blah, blah, blah. They'd be like, oh, they really loved the house, but they said they didn't feel right here. They said something felt off here. And so there was an energy in this house that people immediately sensed, even if they didn't know the story of what happened.
That's
There were
really
very
interesting.
few people because they used to have parties at this house all the time. Every holiday, 70 plus people having a party in this house. But once the night came, everyone cleared out of this place. People that did know the story of what happened there and people that didn't. Like, no one ever felt fully safe or secure in this house. It was a very
that's
interesting
really
place.
interesting. People had, even the people who visited it to maybe buy it, they had a feeling. They had a feeling. I believe there are places that are just haunted and spooky, and stuff happens, particularly things like a great tragedy like this horrible thing. Yeah, I believe it 110%. Kelsey, thank you for sharing your story, and stay spooky.
Thanks, Jim.
Oh, I love this story. Jarrett from Alabama found out about us from the great Astonishing Legends. I'm sure you've checked them out, but if you haven't, please do. Scott and Forrest do a fantastic job. But Jarrett has one of these stories. Usually we hear a parent or an aunt or an uncle say, well, the little kid in the family saw the ghost. But now we're going to get it from the other side. We're going to get it from the little kid's side. Not so little now. Not so little now. Kind of, sort of. Jarrett, welcome to the show. Tell us about it.
So, my aunt, she lived in a old house in Tennessee, kind of out in the middle of nowhere. So, it had been used like during the Civil War era for like a hospital, whatever emergency was, they would just do it there, because there was no anything around. So one day we were up there visiting, me and all my family, and apparently the kids started playing hide and seek. I was one of the kids. Well, few moments went by, and all of a sudden I was crying, and my mom came to me. She was like, and said, "What's wrong?" And I told her. And the crazy thing is, I remember none of this. I remember absolutely none of this. But I told her that I was it, and I was walking, and I saw a soldier walk out of the room. And then when I looked down the hallway where he was at, he wasn't there. And I guess it scared me. So later on, we got back home to Alabama, and I told my mom, I said, I never want to go back there again. And so I thought that was interesting. But I forgot to mention this before I started. But this whole thing come up. We were up visiting my aunt in Tennessee, and they got to telling some ghost stories and stuff. They had an experience somewhere on a battlefield somewhere. Huh. And that's like, she's like, well, that's like when Jarrett saw that Civil War ghost at my house. And I looked at her and said, wait, what? And she was like, yeah. Do you not remember? I was like, no, I don't remember that. And so my mom's like, does not believe in like, ghosts or anything like that.
Right.
But I said, I looked at her and I said, do you remember that? She was like, yeah, I do remember. Like, just like she did, like she thought about it, and she was like, yeah, I do actually remember that. She said it took me a second, but I do remember it. And it's just crazy to me that something like how much more do you suppress as a child experience stuff like that? You know what I mean? Like the fact that I don't remember any of it, and just how much do you suppress at a young age like that, experience and stuff like that.
And I don't know why that is, but we hear that over and over and over again. Somebody will tell me a story. Oh, my son, my daughter saw this, saw that, but they don't remember it anymore. And I never thought about it this way, but that word you use, suppress, is it some kind of defense mechanism? Is it some kind of filter? Is it just because we're taught not to believe in these things? So we kind of say, somehow it goes to the back of our mind. But it's very curious, because I do believe there's something about us when we're very young, when we're a kid, we're more sensitive to this stuff.
Yeah.
We're like a ghost detector, and we become less sensitive as time goes on. I don't know if it's because it's something physiological, biological, spiritual. If it's taught out of us, I don't know what that is, but it seems to be true. And it's interesting that even you were like, because you would think, if somebody mentioned it, you would go, "Oh yeah, it did happen," but you didn't. Yeah, you didn't.
But I had no like.
So it's totally blank.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
But and it's just like, because I listen to a lot of supernatural podcasts and stuff, and they said it's one of those things where like kids, you may not understand it as a kid, so you're just like, oh, and then, or sometimes it's just so traumatic that you're just like, yeah, I want to forget about it and not even
Yeah,
think about
erase
it
it.
again.
And that's
Yeah.
another thing. The interesting fact, though, is that you listen to spooky podcasts, the Astonishing Legends,
Right,
Campfire, whatever it might be.
Yeah.
So maybe at some subconscious level.
Right. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Very good story. Very cool story.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's true. I'm telling you, these things happen. Kids experience these things. It's obvious. This stuff is not made up. Yeah. Do people occasionally make up a story? Sure. But for the most part, all this stuff, this happens. I don't know what happens. I don't know if we're seeing a replay. I don't know if we're seeing dead people. I mean, but we're seeing something. We're seeing something.
Yeah.
And thank you for sharing your something, Jared. Thank you so much for being on the show. I appreciate it. And stay spooky.
Stay spooky.
I love when we get callers from overseas, and Sharon is on the line from England, and we're so glad to talk to her. And she has a very poignant story about her aunt. Sharon, welcome to the show. I know you've been listening for a few years, so thank you for that, and tell us what happened.
Hi, Jim. Yes. My aunt passed away when I was quite young. I was about 16. And she was always quite a spiritual person. She always read tarot and things like that. I had a feeling that if anyone was ever going to come back and say hello, it would be her. And this happened probably a year after she passed. I had a dream, a standard normal dream, and suddenly I turned around and she was in it. And she just looked at me and gave me a big smile and said to me, she felt very different than the dream I was in. She felt like she was inside my dream. It felt very different. And she said, "Oh, can I show you where I am now?" And I said, "Yes." And so she said, "We can't talk. You're just going to have to follow all my instructions." And so that was the last time she spoke to me through her mouth. The rest of the time, she's carried on talking to me, but it was all through her mouth wasn't moving. I could
telepathy.
Hear her
it sounds like telepathy.
Yeah. So she could hear me and I could hear her. And all of a sudden, we turned round and there was a door opened. And this door looked like it was made of bamboo type material. And we walked into this massive room, and there was probably about 40 other people, if not some more, in this big room, and it was a lift. And the doors shut, and all the walls and the doors were all made of this type bamboo type natural wood sticks. And she said to me then, "Don't talk to me. Don't look at me or anything. I'll tell you when it's our turn to get out." And I said, "Okay." And the doors opened a couple of times, and every time it wasn't our turn. Every time the doors opened, it opened onto this big landscape, this big rolling hills. The landscapes looked the same, but they felt different. And one of the times that the doors opened, there looked like in the distance there was a forest one side and a forest the other side of the doors. And I could hear people screaming and shouting, and it looked like the Civil War, when they all come over on horsebacks and the colours and everything.
Right.
It looked like that, and they kind of went from one forest to the other, and some people got out on every different stop. And then the doors opened at one point, and she said, we get out now. And I said, okay. And then I went to walk, and we didn't walk. We flew, but it was not like the snowman, but we kind of just flew just a couple of inches off the floor. It felt we just glided out of this lift. And again, the landscape was the same. It was rolling hills, beautiful. The colours were incredible. And for as far as you could see, there was just, nature and hills, and it was beautiful. And we kind of flew to the top of this hill. And she said, let's sit down here. And we sat down. And as I looked across, I could see a really big old farmhouse. And it looked like the American farmhouses, the barns, they're red, the red barns.
Right. Sure.
It looked like that. Yeah. And it was a beautiful house. And in the garden, in the distance, I could see loads of people. It looked like they were having a garden party. There was people sitting, under umbrellas, under on tables. There was children running around. And the more I looked, the more I realised that all these people were people I knew. And they were people that had passed and hadn't passed as well. They were just everybody. My whole side of that family were there. And the more I looked at the children, I realised that 2 of the children were me and my sister, but not the age we were, when I had this dream. I was about 16, 17, but we were young. I was probably about 10. My sister was probably about 8. We were young and we were playing with other children, which I recognised to be my cousins.
Wow.
And I was really astounded. I was really like, that's me. And she said to me, I really need you to understand this. She said, it doesn't matter. Age and time don't matter. And you are all here and I don't miss you because you're already all here. And you can be any age that I want you to be at any point. So it kind of felt like she kind of said, that's all she said. And then she just said to me, do you understand? And I said, yeah. And then I woke up. It was an immediate waking up. But that's the impression I got, was that, yeah, that was her life now. And she's in this beautiful place with all her family and children and nieces and nephews, and she's quite happy. And maybe I could be a child one day and she could be watching me play, and then the next day I could be the age I am now and we could be having a conversation as adults. That's it. It's very hard to explain. It was like a very instant knowing, and she kind of made sure I understood it. And as soon as I said I understood it, I was awake.
So do you feel this is a representation of what actually kind of happens in the afterlife? Do you think it was just a nice dream? What do you think?
I don't think it was a dream, only because we dream all the time, don't we? And I remember that. I'm nearly 50, and I remember that like it was yesterday, and I was about 16, 17 when that happened. So I don't, it doesn't feel like a dream. It didn't feel like a dream when it happened. It felt like I was in a dream and she came into it. And then she, it was like, what are you doing here? What are you doing in my dream? It didn't feel like she was the dream and that where we went was a dream. It felt very real.
That is an amazing, amazing story. I absolutely love it. And again, I'm a big believer in the afterlife. And actually what you kind of described is kind of like if somebody said, well, what would your idea of heaven be? And I've often said on the shows, I would love about 100-year family picnic where we all get together and kind of reminisce, but also we introduce our family members maybe to other people in other parts of their life that they didn't get to meet, if there was somebody my age who was on the other side with me, I could say, well, you know how I used to tell you about my neighbor, Rose. Let me come over and have you meet Rose, who was actually from England. That's a real person. And I would introduce them to Rose and said, this was the lady who was always very nice to me when I was a child. This is my grown-up friend. I just think that would be so much fun. I mean, I hope there's a component of that on the other side where you do get to spend time with those who have passed. Hopefully many years from now, find out many years from now. But yeah, It's really interesting. Well, and I believe there are different kinds of dreams, right? I believe there's just the garden variety kind of dreams. It's just kind of a rehash of things that happened today, some of the nonsense.
Yes.
Sometimes you get those really weird dreams that make no sense. And then I think there are dreams like this that are connecting us to something very, very much bigger, very spiritual.
Yes,
Sharon,
it was very vivid.
And how does it change your perception of the afterlife in terms of how you feel about it?
I feel it's exactly that. It was a very strange knowing. It was. It's hard to explain, isn't it? Sometimes when people have these experiences, it just felt like a knowing more than her kind of telling me. It just felt like, oh, yeah, I know this.
That's fantastic.
It was. Yeah, it was lovely.
Well, Sharon, thank you so much. I appreciate it, and thank you for being a part of the Campfire.
Thank you, Jim. Thank you.
One of our great members of our free virtual campfire group at virtualcampfiregroup.com, you ought to be there if you're not, is Stephen, and he's going to join us with a couple of stories tonight. We're so glad to have him. Stephen, good to talk to you again. I know you've been on the show before. Thank you, and tell us what happened.
Hello, guys. So my friend and I, it was probably back when it was probably like late summertime. My friend and I were playing video games, and I had to drop him off at home. And so we just sporadically left the house. And my friend, I went out the front, like my parents' backyard is half of a football field. So I opened up the door first, and I walked out. And then I turned back around, and my friend Spencer's face went completely white. And I looked at him, and I was like, hey, what's wrong? And he couldn't say anything. And I was like, dude, like, what's going on? And he pointed, and I turned around, and there was a girl with black pigtails wearing a dress, and we completely freaked out. I don't really necessarily remember what her face looked like or anything. And then she vanished. So we ran from part of the yard to where my S10 pickup truck was. And we got into the S10 pickup truck, and I was trying to grab keys out of my pocket. And I was jiggling the handles to get in. And then both of us hopped into the truck, and we looked at each other and like took a deep breath and was like, what was that? And then suddenly the back of the bed of the pickup truck bounced up and hit the ground again, and she hit the top of the roof of the truck. And I tried to turn on the truck, it wouldn't start. Tried it again, it finally started up, and we quickly reversed out the driveway, like totally freaked out.
Wow.
Yeah,
wow.
It was really intense. So that was the first time this girl that I've seen popped up before.
So the girl popped up, you tried to run, you and your friend tried to pop up in the truck. Yes. And then the truck, the back of the truck lifted off the ground a little bit?
Yeah, I would say maybe by like maybe about 6 inches, because the truck had really bad shocks.
But yeah, it's a truck.
It's like an old S10 truck, yeah. And
right,
she bounced the back of the bed and hit. Yeah, it was wild. Wow. So
now the funny thing is, Stephen said the second part is the more intense part. So let's hang on to our hats. Go ahead.
So after I've encountered this girl multiple times, like around at my parents' house multiple times.
Yeah.
So here and there I'll see her. She'll like tap on the windows in the house and stuff, and then like she'll vanish. So this next story was I house sit my aunt's house out in the country. And my friend and I were going back out to my aunt's house after we picked up In-N-Out. And my friend was pretty skeptical about my story about her. And we went through the front door, which I normally don't do. I normally go through the garage of the house, but I forgot the garage door clicker. So we went through the front door, and I opened up the front door, and you know those Wi-Fi hot boxes that are like the size of like a, I don't know, like 4 inches with the battery pack on the bottom? The Verizon.
Yeah.
So I had that hanging up on a chandelier because that was like the best spot to get internet. because for whatever reason that was like the best area of the house to keep them.
Yeah.
So I had it up on a chandelier, and as we were walking through their front door, one of the Wi-Fi boxes got picked up and tossed right past my face,
Oh,
and it
man.
slammed against it, and I saw that girl again. And my friend was like, "What was that?" And I was like, "I'm telling you, this girl has been haunting me for so long," and he completely freaked out.
Who do you think the girl is? Do you have any theories?
I don't know, actually. I can't really put two and two together. I'm not too sure, to be honest with you.
Huh.
So it's very interesting.
Does this continue to this day?
Yes. So my last, if I have time, I can tell you my last encounter.
Go ahead.
So my last encounter was also with my friend Spencer, and we were watching a horror movie, and somebody tapped on the front door at my aunt's house on the piece of glass. So, we got up from the couch, paused the movie, looked outside the window, nobody was there. So we're like, oh, okay, that was a little weird. So we turned on all the like the front lights outside to see the entire driveway and everything, and there was nothing there. So then, as we were doing that, we heard a tap on the glass door, which was in the back part of the house. And we looked back and we're like, what the heck? There's nobody there. So then as we were doing that, we heard loud running sounds across the house to the bedroom window, and she tapped on the window. And then after maybe about 5 minutes, I went to go use a restroom. She started banging on the bathroom door. And I looked out the bathroom door, and there she was, and she vanished again.
Wow.
Same girl with the black pigtails and the black laced dress. It was wild.
Well, please keep us up to date. If you see her again, or if you get any theories about who she is, please let us know. I mean...
Yeah, it's definitely weird. I don't really know who she is.
Do you think she's more connected to you or more connected to property?
That I'm not too sure, because I feel like she follows me everywhere.
Sounds like it, yeah.
Yeah, because when I was in Seattle, I saw her there too, so she must be connected to me somehow. But I'm not too sure.
Interesting.
It is very interesting indeed.
Well, Stephen, thank you so much for joining us. Thanks for being so active over in the virtual Campfire group. We appreciate it. Thanks for sharing these stories. Please do keep us updated. And
yes, we'll do.
Stay spooky.
Thank you. Have a good day, Jim.
Next up is Ray from California. He's been on the show before, and I got to tell you, I love this story because when I read it, I'm like, this is the definition of a head scratcher. Ray, welcome back to the show, and tell us what happened.
Yeah, Jim, thanks for having me. So this story is a little short. I want to start by giving some background about where it happened. I live in the city right beneath Pasadena, and for anyone that's ever been there, there's a lot of these huge mansions, a lot of kind of wealthy folk that live there. You've probably heard of the Rose Bowl, Rose Parade, Pasadena in general, right?
Of course.
Okay. I think what a lot of people don't know, and even I didn't know until maybe a couple of years ago, it's got some spooky history. Jack Parsons, which was the founder of JPL Labs, Jet Propulsion's laboratory, owned by NASA now, was into some kind of weird, creepy stuff. He was in a cult, and if you've ever heard of Aleister Crowley, he was a huge follower and probably the biggest believer in the US.
Wow, didn't know that. Wow.
Yeah, he also hung out with L. Ron Hubbard, the founder of Scientology, and just was a character, right? I guess he had to be at that time. So anyway, he was a really rich guy, had these rituals in his house, and it was really unbelievable. If you really never heard of it, you'd be like, no, that's unreal, but it's all documented, it's all really happened. Anyway, the only reason I want to give some background into that is because this happened to me in one of those little towns, these little driveways. Let me just explain what happened. I used to live in Pasadena, and I would go visit my father, who lived in the city right below. Now, in order for me to get to his house, you have to drive through these mazes of streets, and in between these mazes, they're really low lit, but there's these huge mansions that some of them are so big you can't even see the house because the gates are so high. And you kind of wonder who is there. The weird thing about it too is all these giant houses, right? They're always empty. There's nobody ever there. There's nobody in the driveway. Some of them don't have gates, so you can kind of see them. And it kind of makes you wonder, like, who actually lives there? Like, what's happening there? Like, does anyone live there? And most of the time, I go up and down here all the time. I'm visiting my dad a few times a week. And I drive through here and I don't see anybody. I don't see anybody walking on the street, like nobody jogging, nothing. And that's why I like going through there because it's kind of like a shortcut. Anyway, so there's this one street I turn through, gone through there 2, 3 dozen times, and nobody's ever there. There's no lights. It's just all stop signs. So it's great. I'm just trying to paint a picture of like what you see. And they have lit like street lights, but they have like these tiny little street lights that like don't illuminate anything. And there's only like 3 on the whole block. So it's really dark. Anyway, I turn down the street I always go down, and for some reason, there's like 50, 60 cars on the street parked. I'm like, oh, this is out of the ordinary. Maybe it's a party, and I'm like, it's a Wednesday at like 9 p.m. Like, I doubt it.
Mm-hmm.
And I just start going slower, and the whole time I'm on the phone with my sister, and I'm kind of telling her, like, hey, like, I'm feeling really weird over here. Like, I don't know what's happening, but like, at least you're on the phone with me if something happens, you know where I last was. And as I said that, I'm in like a big car, huge bright headlights, and I turn to the left, and there's one of those giant mansions, but with like no gate in the front, and there's like 60 to 70 people hanging out in the front yard, like if they're at a party. Think of little tables, but nobody's on their phone. I didn't see one screen light up, and there was no lights on whatsoever. Like they're hanging out in the dark. And the second I looked over, I just kind of like got this feeling like, oh, I wasn't supposed to see this. And everyone just looked at me. I like yelled it at the same time almost. And I just kept driving, and I was like really scared and talking to my sister. And then I kind of just stopped replying to her. She's like, what's going on? And I made it like a block away, or at the end of the block. And I finally started replying like, oh, I don't know, but I saw this weird thing just now. Do you want me to go back and like FaceTime and show you what I just saw? And she was like, no. After I kind of explained to her what happened, I was like, I don't think I was supposed to see that. Let's just get out of here. So we drove away, but it still takes like 10 minutes to get out of these winding roads and back to the city. So this whole time, I'm just driving like 10 miles under the speed limit, just like kind of scared because I don't know what the heck I just saw. But it kind of reminded me of that movie, the Eyes Wide Shut movie, if you've ever seen it. And you just have all these people around and like, I don't know. It felt so off. It's not like a paranormal story, but...
Right. It kind of reminds me, we had a story a few weeks ago of a woman who was in the woods, and then she saw all these people in hoods and things and all this weird stuff. Kind of like something that seems like it's out of place, like just kind of weird, and it strikes you as weird. Now, do you think they were maybe doing some kind of meditation or some kind of a ritual or something?
I thought about this a lot. The thing is, I don't know. What could you be doing in the dark? Like, why would you not need light, even if you are doing that, right? Like, you couldn't see anything. The only reason you could see them, I could see them, is because my car passed through with the headlights. But I wonder a lot. I don't know. I think of that movie all the time. I think of maybe a birthday party, but with no lights on. Like, none of what I thought made any sense.
Yeah, it's a weird. And that's the thing, is that there are just these things that we encounter in life, and it's just kind of like, wait, 2 + 2 is equaling 7 here. It doesn't make sense. But then what is it? What do you do with it? I mean, I have a feeling, Ray, that the rest of your life you're going to question this and try to figure it out. I don't have any answers. I know there are places where weird things are done, like Bohemian Grove, for example. If you've ever looked that up. Familiar with Bohemian Grove, it kind of reminds me of this, where they burn this owl in effigy. And there's been famous people.
Presidents,
like presidents, Walter Cronkite. I think President Reagan was there. President Nixon was there. It just makes you think. Are these like secret societies that we don't know about and things going on? A cult, which means hidden, if I'm not mistaken. In this case, it was hidden. I was going to say hidden in broad daylight, but it wasn't daylight. It was just strange.
And also just on somebody's front yard, like anyone could have driven by, but I think they know nobody really drives through there. I just like taking the back roads, and I think that's how I stumbled upon it. And sorry there weren't any ghosts or anything, but it was just definitely.
So you got the definite feeling that you weren't welcome.
No, the second everyone looked at me, like I could tell, and they were a lot older. Like they were like older people. I was like, oh yeah, I don't belong here. I'm just driving through.
Interesting. Maybe if you would have went in, they would have captured you, Ray, and you would have become one of them. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just messing with you. I'm just joking. Ray, very interesting story, and I love the stories that just make us think, and this one makes us think. Thank you for being a part of the campfire today. Stay spooky.
Stay spooky, Jim. Thanks again for having me.
I love the idea of having campfire storytellers all over the globe. Chantal from France is just such a person. We're so glad to have her on the program. And she has a story about her dad. She's a Plus Club member. We appreciate the support. As I was telling her, without the support of our Plus Club members, we cannot do what we do. So thank you, Chantal. And thank everybody out there who is a Plus Club member. Please tell us your story. And thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me. It's a bittersweet story, actually very sad, bittersweet. This takes place 34 years ago, and my father was diagnosed with cancer.
Oh.
And my sister was planning to get married, and in about 16 months from that point, and my dad had like a 15% survival rate, so it was a serious case. And my sister wanted to know, do you want me to move the wedding up so that we can have it, since your diagnosis is so serious? And he said, no, don't change your plans for me. Let's just keep it the way it is. So my dad just, hung in there and never complained, dealt with his diagnosis. And you could just see the decline, though, within those 16 months. So my dad was a very kind of a serious guy, and he was an atheist and didn't really want to talk about faith at all. But about 15 months into his illness, and now we knew it was going to be 16 months when he passed, but about a month before he passed, I had a very poignant conversation with him about faith and just said, listen, I know it's real. If you don't have to believe it's real, and that's okay. But I do know it's real, and you can take the chance, and then I'll see you there because I know it's real.
Right.
You have nothing to lose. So, we had this talk. Of course, I cried the whole time. We held hands. It was very sad and intense. But he said, now, was that so hard to do? And I was like, yeah, actually it was.
Sure.
But we finished our conversation, and that following month, my sister got married, and she had a garden wedding. And back then, it was very small. And the next day we got together and with my dad and had a toasted champagne. He had a little swab of champagne. And we listened to the cassette of the wedding because that's how long ago it was. And my dad then got to shake his son-in-law's hand, which I know is really why he stayed alive as long as he did, because he really wanted to be there for that. So we all had a little time with my father before we all had to leave back to our jobs and to our cities where we lived. And my husband at the time said to my dad, do you mind if I pray with you before we leave? And he said, okay. Well, I thought that was over the top, but I was totally for it. And after the prayer, my dad said amen, which I thought was wild. So we left, and it was terribly sad. Everybody was crying. The next morning, his sister, my aunt, she woke up and she said to her husband, my uncle, Jim died last night. And he said, well, how do you know that? And she said, well, and I need to jump back. I'm sorry, I forgot one thing. And that is my stepmom at 3 a.m. said to my dad, you can let go. Everybody's okay. Everything is fine. Now, she's married. My sister's married. Everybody's doing okay. You can let go. And at 3:30 in the morning, she woke up. She fell asleep for that little time, and my dad had passed. So the next day, now back to my aunt, she woke up and said to her husband that Jim died last night. And he said, well, how do you know? She said, well, I had this dream. The dream was on the wall, one huge wall. It was a clock and it said 3:30. And my dad came walking up to my aunt and she said, well, Jim, what are you doing here? And he said, well, I just came to let you know that I'm okay and that everything's all right. Well, she didn't know that my dad died at 3:30, but he came to her in that dream to tell her, and they were very close. And it wasn't until later that day that we found out, all of us, that he had passed and when he had passed. And then my aunt shared her story. And it was a story that just, gives me a lot of hope because, it's a big deal to lose your parent. But it was comforting to know that he came back to let everybody know he was okay.
And it's remarkable. You see that he was kind of initially, it sounded like he was kind of resistant to this whole idea, but over time it seems like he came to accept it and then took this step to come back and share the story. And you use the word, and I think it's so appropriate. It's bittersweet in the sense that he's gone, and it's a very sad thing, and the way that all of it happened, and that doesn't go away. But it seems to me reaffirming that he did reach out and he did let you know, and you very much know he's still around, just in a different room, as they say.
In a different room, but he's definitely always present.
That's excellent. Chantel, thank you for your support. Thank you for sharing the story. I know when people share these kind of stories about past loved ones and signs and so forth, it's difficult. It's difficult because, again, as much as we're heartened by the stories of connection and signs and so forth, it still hurts. But I think it's so useful to so many people to share these kind of stories. And thank you for sharing yours today.
My pleasure. Thanks for your program.
I'm so happy because Amanda is back. She's a Plus Club member, loyal listener since pandemic times, and she has a UFO story. And I just want to say a note about that before we get started. We thank Amanda and we thank all of our storytellers, but I think sometimes people get hung up on the idea that, oh, that's a ghost story podcast. Yeah, it is. And it's a UFO story podcast. And it is a Bigfoot story podcast. And just... excuse the vernacular, but weird as hell story podcast. And it's also the podcast where I have a garbage truck outside taking my garbage. So if you hear that, I apologize. Usually we do a pretty good job of getting it out, but Amanda is here nonetheless. We don't want to take her time up. And she's going to tell us her UFO story. And by the way, you can tell your story, whatever stripe of the unusual it is, by signing up at jimharold.com/campfire. Amanda, your time could start now because I just took up a lot of it. Tell us what happened. Thanks for joining us.
Hi, Jim. Thanks for having me back. So this story, I don't know if it falls under UFO, head scratcher, but it was quite exciting. So I live in New York in the mid-Hudson Valley, just 12 miles from the Massachusetts border. So literally where the Hudson Valley meets the Berkshires. And this area is quite well known for a lot of UFO activity. And so my story took place probably the end of March. It was not winter anymore, but the leaves weren't on the trees. Everything was kind of stark and gray still. And a friend of mine and I had gone to a concert in Great Barrington, Massachusetts, which is very well known for some UFO activity, especially in the 60s. And we were driving home, and it's just dark, windy roads through the woods as you're coming out of the Berkshires. And but like 10:30 at night, dark, no other real cars on the road, which was kind of unusual. And I was driving, and we're just talking. We didn't have the music playing or anything. We're just, catching up. And I turned around this bend, and at the top of the tree line, ahead in the distance, there were these big bright lights, and they looked almost like football stadium lights, for night
Right.
games. It was
Sure.
that level of intensity, but it was right at the tree line, like at top of the trees. So I went around a bend, and then the road continued, and the lights, I just couldn't see them anymore. But I said, "That's weird. That was so bright. What were those lights?" And she's like, "I don't know." So then we just kind of, forgot about it, drove a few more miles, and I know exactly where we were on the road because my husband used to work down the road where we saw the UFO. And there's a restaurant there we used to go to all the time. I've been on this road hundreds and hundreds of times. So I'm very clear on where it happened. So we're driving, and we just turned this little bend, and all of a sudden, at the treetops, like hovering right to the right side of the road, just over the treetop, is this massive thing with 2 rows of lights going across it. Now, I could not see the outer edge of what I'm just going to call it a UFO, just for lack of a better description right now, but I couldn't see the outer edges of the UFO because it was so dark, and it's a back country road and not a lot of cars or anything. So, but there was a solid line of lights, probably 6 to 10 of them, very large, very, very bright. And then just above that row of lights was another row of lights, but not quite as many. And it was just hovering there. And we didn't hear any sound. And I should say we were at a concert, but we hadn't had anything to drink or anything.
Mhm.
And we're driving, and I was like, "Oh my God, what is that?" And I was driving, so I couldn't really like lean over and look too much. I said, "What is that? What is that?" And she's looking out of the window, and she said, "Just drive, just drive, just drive. Just keep going." And I said, do you still see it? Like, is that a UFO? She said, "I don't even want to think about it. I'm going home to an empty house. My husband's out of town. I
Oh,
don't even want to think
man.
about it." Yeah. So I said, "Oh my God, what is it? Can you still see it?" And I was excited. She was freaking out. She's skeptical, and so to see her have that reaction was a little jarring for me.
Sure.
And so and it was so fast, Jim. People always say, "Why didn't you get a picture? Why didn't you stop?" Why? It was so fast. It's just, and by the time your brain processes, like, "Oh my God." And so she said, "It has to have been a school or a big mansion where they're having a party. It's got to be a school lit up. It's not a UFO. It's got to be some big, huge building." And I was like, "Okay, okay, well, I don't know. Do you still see it?" She's like, "No, because curvy road and everything." So then we came up to Catamount Ski Resort, which was just about a mile and a half past where we saw it. And I said, "Listen, I'm going to turn around and go back because I want to see this. We have to know what this is." And she was just, please don't turn around. I'm going to an empty house. I just, please keep going. And so of course I did. I wasn't going to do that to her.
Right.
So we kept driving, and we were both just like, What was that? That was insane." So I got home. She had met me at my house, so she took off in her car. I came inside. I told my husband. He's like, it sounds like drones." I said, no, it was so big, and these lights were so big and so incredibly bright. I mean, when I saw it initially when we were driving, I thought it was, high school stadium lights.
Right.
That's how bright it was. And I said, "I can't imagine it was drones. I just can't." And we didn't see any movement. Again, it was very quick. So the next day, I was just like excited and freaked out, and I needed answers. And so the next day, I drove that same route, went all the way to Great Barrington and back. And in that spot, again, I knew exactly where we saw it because I'm so familiar with it. Um, there was nothing there, Jim. There's no, even though it's the Berkshires, there was not
Mhm.
a hill in that spot with a house on top or anything. It was
Huh.
flat, no house, nothing. Just this big thing hanging over the treetops. And I have asked her about it, my friend, since, and I said, "Can you, just tell me what you saw?" And she describes it exactly the same way. Um, so I don't really know what it was, but
Well, you
very intense. And
anticipated. Yeah, I'm sure. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was just gonna say, I did look online for several days after the local Facebook groups, the community boards. I looked at the local papers. I didn't see anybody commenting about anything. So I really don't know what it was.
Do you have any theories as to what it was? Do you think it was some kind of aliens? Do you think it was a military experiment? Do you think it was atmospheric? Do you have any theories? I guess is what I'm asking.
I mean, my theory is that it was a UFO.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure why the military would have something in this area at 10:30 on a Saturday night at the tree line hovering over a random road.
Yeah, that would seem like an
What do I
odd
know?
test. That would be an odd test. Well, I mean, you and everybody else, I mean, what do any of us know?
Yeah.
We don't. That's why I think everybody is so interested in everything going on. And let's hope we do find out. And I think people telling their stories is at least part of getting to the bottom of it all, because if enough people are telling stories about seeing these things, there's got to be a there. So thank you for sharing yours, Amanda, and stay spooky.
You're very welcome. Thank you for having me.
You know, it's so great to know that new people are discovering our shows all the time. And just such a person is Lori. She discovered us towards the end of last year, and we're so glad she did. She's already a Plus Club member and already a storyteller, and we really appreciate it. And she has, I think some of the most impactful stories we have are pet stories. And we have one of those from Lori. Lori, thank you for joining us. Thanks for being a Plus member, a storyteller. So glad you found us. Tell us what happened.
Thanks so much for having me, Jim. So this is a story about my cat, Blue. Blue was named for her piercing blue eyes and for where we found her, or she found us, which was in the Blue Ridge Mountains. We were on vacation with our family, and we pulled up to our cabin with our two dogs. This emaciated, desperate kitty comes running up to us. And so we take her in and start feeding her right away. We take her to the vet, make sure she's not chipped, have an exam. We couldn't find her owner. So by the time we had to leave from our vacation, we took her home, and she became our own little kitty, coexisting nicely with our two dogs. A couple of years later, I got a divorce, so she joined me and became a very happy condo kitty. She saw me through some very tough times. We were very close. She was super affectionate cat. Always, in fact, I used to tease that she was more like a dog because she demanded attention, always rolling on her belly. And, if I was working from home, she would sit on my keyboard and just demanded attention. Just an adorable cat. Well, the last year of her life, she was with us for about 12 years. The last year of her life, she had developed a liver condition and was quite sick, throwing up, sometimes making some very painful meows. And I knew it was time to help her transition, as hard as it was. I had the vet that comes to the house because I felt that was the most peaceful way. And so she transitioned as peaceful as possible, but I just really struggled with grief and with guilt, wondering if maybe if I did the right thing, because cats can be very stoic, where they seem really sick one minute, they can be she seems fine. But I knew she'd been sick because she'd been struggling for about a year. Anyway, right away, almost immediately, I'd have 3 distinct visits from Blue. The first was as I'm just falling asleep, I feel her jump on the end of the bed, like she always did. And then another time I felt her like at the top of my head, she would lay on the pillow behind me. I felt her there. So I kind of felt that her presence and that just the weight of another being there. And then finally was a very realistic dream where she came to me just as I was waking up, and I felt her gentle headbutt as she would do sometimes in life. And it just really felt like a thank you. And at the very least, just I'm fine, I'm well. And immediately after that, my grief ceased. I felt, I woke up saying, "Oh, hi, Blue." And I just knew she had visited me and let me know she was okay. So
I love that story, and I love the idea that, our pets go beyond. One of my favorite all-time stories in terms of this kind of thing, and similar, is someone had to make that decision for a dog, and it's so tough. We had to do that with our dog that we had for about, oh my gosh, I think he was about 15 years old. He was a larger dog. He was like a part German Shepherd, part Beagle. Fantastic dog. And the thing was, is when our kids were little, his name was Trouble, although he was anything but Trouble. Because when we got him, I said, "Oh, you look like Trouble," and that kind of stuck. But the thing was, he was a great dog, and it was when our kids were small, they could try to ride him like a horse. He would not, he was just great with the kids. So anyway, the time came where he was getting ill, and it just was unavoidable. This was the best thing for him, and it was so sad. So I could relate to this. So this woman had the same decision that you guys faced, or that we faced, you faced, and many folks that have pets have faced. And she came home and she put the collar with the tags hanging down in the garage. And the thing is that now they've got different style tags and it's built into the collar. But back in the day, most of the collars had the hanging tags. And the funny thing is, if you had multiple dogs or multiple cats, you could tell which one it was by the jangle. It's like a sound signature. But the thing is that after the collar was put away, for like 3 or 4 days, she kept hearing the jangle throughout the house, almost like it was coming to say, goodbye and so forth. So I really believe that. I believe that. I believe our pets lived on. And you had mentioned to me offline that you really are enjoying near-death experience accounts and podcasts and so forth. And people have reported in near-death experiences seeing beloved pets. So
I believe it.
Yeah.
They're
so
like
they're still out
Earth.
there. They're still out there. Yeah. I was thinking the other
I
day, we
believe
don't
that.
deserve dogs, and the same goes with cats. I mean, these are family members, and they add so much to our lives.
They truly do.
Lori, I know you have another story. We'll get that another time. But I thank you so much. Thanks you for your support. Thanks for sharing your story today, and stay spooky.
Thank you, Jim. All right. Thank you. Stay spooky.
Well, you never know what you're going to see when you're camping. And Sue is still asking herself that question years after this happened. Sue, welcome to the show. And thanks. I don't know exactly when this is going to air, but you joined us on our Summerween live stream. So thank you for that.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, so appreciate that. And folks, keep an eye on that kind of stuff because we do those things from time to time. That was for everybody. That wasn't even our Plus Club. Then we do special things for our Plus Club as well. You can keep up with everything we do, virtualcampfiregroup.com, virtualcampfiregroup.com. Great community, free community, no catch. Just a way for you to keep up to date in everything we do and talk about stories like this one. Sue, camping. Strangeness ensued. Tell us what happened.
Yeah. Well, thanks for having me on again. This is a story I've told so many times over the years. So when I was in high school back in the early 90s, we had an opportunity to go camping for a week in the Boundary Waters canoe area, which is the border between Minnesota and Canada. Very pristine lakes. You can drink the water right out of them. And I went every year during high school. And on my senior year, there was a really large group of people that wanted to go. There was like 40 plus people, and there's only like 2 or 3 adults. And 10 of us who were seniors, 18, were like, hey, can we just go off to this other lake and go camp there? So we didn't even go with the main group to the main camping spot. So what would happen when we got up there is we'd stop at an outfitter and get the canoes and the packs of food and stuff like that, the things that we didn't personally bring ourselves. And we would gather all that stuff together, and then you would canoe across the lake, carry your canoe and your packs and everything overland to the next lake, canoe across that lake, do that for about 4 to 6 hours, and you're at your campsite. So you're way out in the middle of nowhere. It's just gorgeous. No city lights, no nothing. So we had started out from the lodge with the main group, but we went off in a different direction. So we weren't anywhere near them. We had a lot of fun. It was just a smaller group of people. We'd known each other for 4 years at that point. And we just, had a few weird things happen while we were there. We had some things like, well, first of all, we forgot to bring rope. That's what happens with a smaller group and no adults. I mean, we were supposedly
Sure.
adults, but so the rope is important to string your food packs up between trees so the bears don't get it. And so
Right.
that
That
we
makes
don't have
sense.
we forgot that. So we rigged up a canoe upside down, and these were like flatter bottom canoes. They didn't have like the point that comes up or anything. And
Right.
we stood that up upside down over the food packs, and we made sure it was wedged in. And our alarm system was like the metal plates and cups that came with the camping gear. We'd lay those out all across the top of the canoe. So if a bear were to try to get a bag, we would hear them bang on the ground and the guys could go scare the bear away. And nothing really happened with that all week. We did have a couple of times sitting around the campfire, late at night, we were telling stories about the supposed mass murderer who lives up in the Boundary Waters canoe area and kills campers and things like that. So we tell those stories to freak each other out. And it was a lot of fun, but we would hear noises back in the woods and we'd stop talking to listen and the noises would stop. And this happened several nights. And we were like, okay, maybe we shouldn't be telling these stories. Let's talk about something else. And we would still hear the noises. And it's like, well, it's probably something. We don't know what. It sounded kind of big, but like a bear would move around when you're quiet, not when you're talking.
Right.
So we didn't know what that was. And another person had mentioned that they had seen someone standing up on a bluff across the lake. And they're like, yeah, but they had to have been really tall. Like, I don't know what that was. But they thought it was a person. We all thought it was a person at the time. But our last night there, the fun started. We were separated into maybe 3 or 4 tents. I know I'd always brought my own tent, and I might have had someone else in there. The guys had a tent. There were only 2 guys and 8 girls. A couple people who had never been up there before. This was their first week. And it's late at night. We hear a plate slide off the canoe, just one, and then a cup, and then something else slides off the canoe. And all of a sudden, everything falls off the canoe. So the guys go running out of their tent, banging pots and pans together, except there's no bear. We would have heard it running away. They would have seen it,
Right.
And like the canoe wasn't overturned. The canoe was still stable. So we just set everything back up and went back to sleep. Sure enough, 10, 15 minutes later, something slides off the canoe, just one at a time. And then all of a sudden, everything crashes to the ground. Guys go running out there again, banging pots and pans. And again, no bear. At this point, we're like, okay, this is weird. Our alarm system has worked really well all week. We set everything back up. We made sure the canoe was, not wobbly. It wasn't windy, anything like that. We're like, okay, let's try this again. Let's go back to sleep. Sure enough, 15 minutes later, it happens again. So this is the 3rd time where everything is just falling off the canoe, starting slowly at first, 1 or 2, and then everything. We're like, we don't know what's going on. 2 of the girls at this point are crying. They want to go back to wherever the group is or back to the lodge. And it's very dangerous. You're out in the middle of nowhere in the middle of the night. You can't just, that's why we knew someone from our other group wasn't messing with us because it's too dangerous to canoe like that at night. And we were just trying to think of anything else it could be. And we're like, we don't know. We've got people crying here now. So we separated into 2 tents. 1 guy in each tent. And of course, he's by the door so he can jump out, if something happens. But someone had to be at the back of the tent, that meant. And they're like, Sue, would you sleep back there? And I'm like, fine. So I slept at the back of the tent and I actually fell asleep right away. And nothing else happened the rest of the night, like no other activity. And then in the morning, our food packs were pretty scarce at that point. We'd eat most of the food. We had a loaf of bread or some bread left in one of them. And a bear actually did slide it out from under the canoe without making a sound. So our alarm system didn't really work that last morning other than to scare us the night before. But it was just really weird. We got back, we told everyone about it, and they're like, that's really, really strange, But I've been telling that story so many times over the years, but I've been watching these shows and listening to podcasts and things like that. And I looked up Bigfoot in Boundary Water Canoe area. And sure enough, there are like a lot of stories around that region. And I'm not saying Bigfoot was messing with us that night, but I'm just saying I never thought about it that way. I mean, someone had thought ghosts. It's like, what ghosts are going to be out here?
Right.
Well, the ghosts of the mass murders, victims maybe, but yeah, so it was just a very creepy camping experience. But At the very end, I'll tell you that wasn't my scariest time camping. At the very end, I'll tell you that one. It's a little
Okay.
20-second deal.
Okay. Well, back to this one.
Yes.
I mean, it could be, and then we'll get the other one in there too. But the thing is that it's one of the possibilities, right? And the fact that there were so many sightings, and we
Thinking
know
back, yeah.
from what the experts tell us, if it's to be believed, and I think that it is, that Bigfoot, if it exists, is extremely intelligent. So it could be, and it was interesting. The other interesting part was when you were telling the stories, and it was, you would hear it, then be quiet, and then you hear it, and then be quiet. So you may have very well had an encounter with Bigfoot.
You never know. We just thought it was a creepy incident, and there were no bears involved. Yeah.
So what else would be doing it of that size? So you said you had another small one for us. Go ahead.
Yeah. So that wasn't the scariest time when I was camping. A couple of years ago, I actually drove to Michigan in a camper van to see my son graduate high school. And I was in the middle of, dark parking lot late at night at a truck stop, and a truck pulls up and they have their headlights on, and I have my windows open because it's hot. And I don't know what they're doing there. They're just sitting here. I hear a man and a woman talking. And then I hear her say, "But I gave you all my bullets."
Oh.
I sat up and turned lights on and everything and pulled my phone out.
That might not be paranormal, but if you stick around too much with somebody, that you might become a ghost.
I just had to throw that in at the end.
Yeah, there you go. Sometimes the living are a lot more scary than the dead. Sue, thank you for joining us and telling us these stories. Stay spooky.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me. Stay spooky.
Yeah, good shirt. Thanks for joining us on the Campfire. I appreciate it very much. Thanks to all of our storytellers. As I tell them individually, without our storytellers, we wouldn't have a show. And along that line, I'm sure many of you watching, many of you listening have a story. Please share it at jimharold.com/campfire. Also, if you want to support our work and get access to that archive, that treasure trove of thousands of campfire stories that you can't get on the free feeds, go over to jimharold.com/plus and join today. We have some great updated promo codes. They'll save you a bundle of money, and it will support the work we do. We appreciate it very much. We'll talk to you next time. Have a great week, everybody. Stay safe and stay spooky. Bye-bye.